Okay, I'm back, baby.
This an all-out blitz, real hard hits, them other podcast trash, we gon' make them all quit. We cover all the topics with intelligence and logic. I know you wanna score, but ID gon' stop it. We from Texas, so that mean that we Texans. Breaking down the X's and O's, our profession. No complaining, just training, you see the progression. They had a Pro Bowl for talk shows, we get selected. We gon' celebrate every win like a birthday. Ray J with the news, first with all the updates. Spin move on the competition, yeah, we juking them. You not really in touch if you not tuning in. This is Crenshaw, Briggs, and VT. We want the touchdown, we not trying to go for 3. And it's best if you get up out the street, cause them bulls out the pen and they bout to stampede.
Houston Texans, what up?
What up?
What up?
What up?
What up?
What up?
Hey!
Hey everybody, welcome to the Texans Fan Battle Podcast. We got a special guest tonight. Before I get to him, let me introduce my amazing trio here. We got the man with the beard like Slim Thugger, Mr. Matthew Briggs.
What it do? I wish I could hold down like Slim Thugger.
Then we got the man on the spaces, on the Twitter, on the text messages. He would get off in your shit. We got Mr. Brown Chubby Bear here.
What up, guys?
All right, guys, we got a special guest tonight. We got one half of Locked On Texans. He's a good friend of mine, good friend of the show. Most of you guys know him by John Hickman. I call him Chef Hickman. Say what's up to everybody.
Ooh. Oh. I got a fellow chef on the podcast, huh?
Man, hey guys, thank y'all for having me on. I've been looking forward since my man Crenshaw reached out to me a couple weeks ago, especially considering that it's Black History Month. So the Texans are in a great spot. Everything is kind of looking up for Houston. So with all of that mixed in together, and don't buy into the chef hype, man. And sometimes I'm a house husband and I like to cook. So that's all, man. But thank y'all for having me on today's show.
Appreciate you, man.
Yeah, 100. Appreciate it.
All right, man. Let's get off of Texans news, man. Texans interviewed a couple of coaching candidates on the offense and the defensive side. So, John, talk about the guys you like. Talk about some guys that you think they should interview.
Man, I'm not one of those guys that like to kind of speculate too much. I like to allow the franchise, now led by DeMeco Ryans, to go through their process. Right now, from everything that I've been hearing, Bobby Slowick is the front guy for that OC position. Coach Manuel, the safeties coach from the Jets, got that permission to interview him. They almost, had the opportunity to get Chris Harris, but Tennessee swept in and picked him up. In terms of Coach Manuel, man, what he's been able to do with the Jets, I think is ideal for what the Houston Texans would love to see. When you look at a Derek Stingley, Jalen Petrie, the two, now that we're going into their sophomore year, two DBs, young DBs, and then you look at some of the vets that can really, thrive in what they've been able to do. If we look at how they were able to kind of cover teams in New York, Steven Nelson and Desmond King. So I like that idea. In terms of who they've interviewed so far or requested permission to interview so far, especially when we looked at Chris Harris and Coach Manuel, both of those coaches are coming from franchises. They got some big boys up front that cause a lot of hell for opposing teams. Chris Harris was over with the Commanders before going to Tennessee, and I think they have the best defensive line unit in the league. We look at what New York has with Carl Lawson and Quentin Williams. Man, they make it hard for quarterbacks to sit back there and pick apart a defense. So when you add that element to those great DBs, it makes their job a whole lot easier. So I say all of that to say that it's going to be imperative for Houston to really invest into their front four this year, no matter who they get, because they just need to upgrade that position and that unit altogether. I like Bobby. I think Bobby Slowick, the potential OC, coming over from San Fran, I think that's probably the most ideal person that you want here in Houston. Somebody that he's worked with already and understands that, hey, I got this side of the ball and I can trust you on that side of the ball because we've seen success in a certain way that we've been able to kind of mirror that with San Fran for the past couple of seasons when we worked together. So I think that he's going to get that deal done, come to Houston. And then from there, one of the things I'm super excited to talk about with you guys is locking down that quarterback spot. But I know we got to wait before we get to that.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. We've been cooking it up all day today. So.
Oh, man. And V, I think I tweeted. Now y'all going to hate me. I think V was the one that responded. Was like, he couldn't wait. So, but they got to get their quarterback situation taken care of, all jokes aside.
Okay. All right. Matt, talk to me.
Yeah, man. Same as John. I like you can't go wrong with either person that they're bringing in on either side. I wouldn't mind maybe interviewing Thomas Brown from the Rams. I think that would be a great fit. That Sean McVay offense. I love it. So I wouldn't mind that. I was a Chris. I know V wasn't. I was a Chris Harris fan. So I was hoping we would get him, but Tennessee got him, and they're probably going to, run him down too, like they did do all other coaches, like Tim Kelly. So it's going to suck, but yeah, man, I'm excited for DeMeco, his process, who he brings in. It's hard not to be excited, right? Like the dude just brings a different kind of energy, and I am so tired of hearing these fans saying, "Oh, well, we haven't signed nobody because Nick Casario won't let him." Come on, guys. Like, that's not – you shouldn't be like, "Oh, hey, hurry up, get a coach." No, let the process weed itself out and be patient. Like, it's not a race to get your staff filled. We still got the Super Bowl. The Super Bowl hasn't happened yet. Give us some time there, fellas. Like, woo. Pull Martin Lawrence. Woo-saw there, fellas. Woo-saw. Like,
and I think last year with Lovey, I'm sorry to interrupt, but I think last year Lovey didn't make getting the coaching staff ready until like the 13th of February or something like that, like the second week.
It was a while. It was
a little minute into that process, and you got your guy. Like, you got the head coach. This is the guy that other teams wanted. You got him. So I think that we should be okay with understanding, well, let's really sit back and trust, like you said, the process of allowing it to go through and bringing in the right guys. Plus, I do believe that the one thing that I love about DeMeco Ryans more than anything is, if you guys go back and watch that, the press conference, and Chris Sean, you was there, how many times did you hear the word development?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Close to 30, I think. Like, I went back and tried to – every time I read, I wrote it down. Seriously. So, like, I understand that it may be a process that some people aren't ready to, wait for, but take your time, because he's going to bring in some coaches that are going to mirror everything he wants, and that's to develop these players.
And that's what we've been preaching this whole last year, and now coming that now is youth movement. And that's what he's bringing is the youth movement. And like you said, you got to be patient for it. You can't just expect it to be great right off the bat. So, yeah, I agree with you.
Yeah, I think it's more the fans just more excited this year than last year. Last year, they didn't give a damn when the coaches were going to come. So I think that's really what it is. But VT, give me your thoughts.
So on the offensive side, I think right now it's going to be Bobby Slowick. I'd be surprised if it's Troy Walters, but though I'd be happy if it was. Troy Walters, a lot of people aren't necessarily happy with that pick or that suggestion, but he's got 11 years of collegiate experience even before the NFL. So I know I do think he's qualified. I just think that Bobby Slowick probably will work better with DeMeco, because they were both quality control dudes at the 49ers at the same time. So they worked together, because Bobby Slowick worked on the defensive side of the ball before he went to the offensive side of the ball. So I do think that DeMeco working with Slowick probably can work quite well, simply because he knows how the whole system is supposed to work. So it's lining up as Slowick could possibly be the OC. As far as the DCE is concerned, if anyone who follows me on Twitter or watched the podcast before knows that I was pretty much really upset when Chris Corsack decided he was going to stay in San Fran. I really wanted him. I felt that he could help our missed tackle situation. He was probably the best choice, in my opinion. Um, I am not necessarily as upset that we're not getting Chris, only because we have DeMeco. And at the end of the day, whoever we get is going to be molded by DeMeco in DeMeco's system. The only person I would say, this is the first time I would actually say it's kind of questionable, is the new guy that was just announced before this broadcast started a couple hours ago, Matt Burke. So Matt Burke has had 18 years or something like that in the NFL coaching wise, but he's been tossed around, and it seems like he's been getting fired a lot. So yes, he has quite a bit of experience, but the thing is, he's only had jobs for a year multiple times, and he's been a DC before at the Falcons, if I believe correctly, right? So. And he didn't necessarily do that great of a job. So Matt Burke, to me, I don't understand that except for his experience. The only thing that I'm going to say is, like I said before, is that it's DeMeco is going to really have a hand in the defensive side. So perhaps all he needs is someone with enough experience that can understand what he's saying and kind of run with that, but not necessarily make it his own. If that makes any sense.
Okay, makes sense. And I'm with John. I like Bobby on the offense, and I like Manuel on the defense. We can get some Legion of Boom action in here. Hey, I will take it.
Yeah, that's something. Yeah.
I would take that in a heartbeat. So all right, I'm gonna hit you with an Uno card and reverse it back to you, VT, on this question right here. What do you think of? Okay, matter of fact, I ain't gonna ask you that. Last week we had a press conference. Give me 1 minute of the best take out of their press conference, either a question someone asked or something that DeMeco said, Cal, or Nick said in the press conference last week.
There's a couple things that I liked. One, John already brought up about development, which I love, right? They talked about Fred Warner being a third-round pick, and now he's an all-pro. John made this point on his show talking about how everyone was talking, some fans were talking about Davis Mills, and I like John's point. He brought up Thomas Booker. I thought that was a great point. Development of, fifth-round rookies or whatnot that DeMeco could elevate. That was definitely one point that I liked. The other point that it's not necessarily a football thing, but it is – it's an art thing at this point, is that he wanted to be here from the moment that he was even talked about it. The fact that he said, make it happen, I want to be here, means something. And because for a long time, with Cully and Lovey, we basically chose these guys because we didn't really have a choice. And even before Lovey, even when we had Josh McCown, no one else was going to give him a head coach position. The fact that we have someone that all 5 head coach needy teams wanted, and yet we got him, is a big deal to me. Yes, we got DeMeco, we've got the picks, we've got the money. It seems like things are trending up. And to me, that's a huge, huge thing. It's not necessarily an X's and O's thing, but it's a powerful thing nonetheless.
All right, Mr. Briggs, talk to me.
Yeah, I mean, basically everything what VT and what John said earlier is just the development. You gotta love it, and to me, one thing that I caught that I liked was the excitement out of Nick Caserio, out of Cal McNair. You didn't get that from Lovey. Like it was a different culture change when Lovey got hired, but this is a totally different situation, and I just loved it. I loved the whole atmosphere. Like, I mean, you were there, Crenshaw. I mean, it had to be off the hook. So just watching it was great. So yeah, I love the shift of the movement. Was what I liked about the whole conference.
Okay, I like it. John, talk to me.
Yeah, man, a couple of things. Let's go back to Matt. Shout out to V, man. Going back to what Matt just said, and Crenshaw, you was there. You felt that electricity through the phones. You know what I mean?
Right,
like
exactly.
you felt it. Now, what I said on our show on Locked On Texans is this franchise has been dead, and it felt like that red carpet was rolled out for a former, Bulls on Parade red jersey wearing player who now can pump some red blood into the veins of this dead franchise. So that's, before we even got to the press conference, it was just like, it's electric. And I hate I couldn't be there. I had to work, but you felt that energy. But then my co-host, my friend and brother, Cody, asked Nick Caserio about his admiration for the Steelers and how they've been able to build success. And I think that was a great question because the reason why the Steelers have been so successful in 2 decades, at least since I've been alive, has been they've only had 2 coaches. And so when you look at year 1 and year 2 under Nick Caserio, you did not expect those coaches. Maybe Lovie Smith, last 2 years, but you didn't expect those coaches to last long. Now with DeMeco Ryans, I think you can say that he'll end out he'll see his contract through. And I think that's important because if you have a coach that can see his contract through, at the very least, he's doing something to stick around and that builds that consistency. And that's how you build a franchise. Like when we look at the Patriots and their dominance, they had Tom Brady for those, 2 decades, but they also had Bill Belichick for two decades. Going right back to the Steelers, between Mike Tomlin and Coach Cowher, 2 decades worth of work, 2 Super Bowls, and Mike Tomlin hasn't had a losing season. So they just been consistently from every, from the owner to the general manager to the head coach, they've been able to be consistent throughout those years, mainly because they only had 2 coaches. And I thought that was important because you saw Nick Caserio kind of get giddy-eyed it. Like, I got my Mike Tomlin, right? I got my Bill Cowher. I got my Bill Belichick. I got my guy that I can see this thing through with. And he didn't have it before.
Yeah, that's true. He talked about that last year. He was looking for that forever coach, and we thought it was Josh McCown. We thought it was Gerard Mayo, but it ended up being Coach Cap, DeMeco Ryans. I'm glad we got DeMeco because we would have got Josh McCown. I would have been a New England Patriots fan like you, John.
No cap. We would have took you on too, man. We got a lot of room on the bandwagon.
Yeah, no cap, man. I would have been over there, man. All right, man. So let's get off into these quarterbacks. So we got Texans got the potential. Texans got the potential to get Derek Carr, Jacoby Brissett, Jimmy Garoppolo, and I'm gonna throw in Mike White.
Baker Mayfield too. You can't deny Baker.
Still got Baker.
Did you see his eyes?
Baker Mayfield. Okay, but all right. So out of those quarterbacks, John, who would you take? And if you don't want one of those quarterbacks, who would you want?
Listen, man. Listen. What are we waiting for? Are people not used to having good things? I'm not taking none of those quarterbacks. I'm not taking a failed former first-round pick quarterback. I'm not taking a journeyman in Jacoby Brissett. I'm not doing any of that. I'm taking a quarterback with the number 2 overall pick in the 2023 draft, unless they decide to be bold and trade up. But you don't have to do that. You can either get Bryce Young, and I know Bryce Young scares a lot of people, or CJ. Bryce Young scares me. I'm personally, especially after that Georgia game, I'm going CJ. I think that you go up against the number 1 defense in the country where it matters in the SEC, and he had the performance he did. You go with CJ. And a lot of people are like, wait until, build around, do this and the third. I get it. But I also feel like people are missing out on one thing, and that's if you get your rookie quarterback, you get your rookie quarterback on a rookie quarterback deal. The immediate comparison I point to in the league right now as to why Houston should draft one of those top 2 quarterbacks is in the same division. Let's go to the Jags. Trevor Lawrence didn't have a good first season. I get it. Had a terrible coach, a lot of rockiness going around in Jacksonville. The roster wasn't bad. The coaching was terrible. But in year 2, what they did, they had some money to spend in free agency. Christian Kirk, Evan Ingram, Brandon Sheriff, Zay Jones. That's on the offensive side of the ball alone. They played a combined 86% of the snaps for the Jags. And I didn't even mention Oluokun. Right? So I think that when you look at the possibility of getting a young quarterback, you have that opportunity to bring your OC in, coach him to what you want that young quarterback to be, right? You don't have to worry about trying to coach Derek Carr now to what you want your system to be, or Jacoby Brissett, who, by the way, I think Jacoby Brissett is a great pro. He can fit in any system because he's just been able to do it for so long. But you don't have to worry about a Baker. You don't have to worry about that. Get your young guy, get him now. He'll be cheap. He'll be like $8 or $9 million towards the cap. something along those lines. I may be off a couple of numbers, but he won't be expensive. And then use this year to coach him up, build him in the direction you want him to go, right? Before you draft him, use this year to build your team in free agency. And then next year, we got a bunch of money coming in. Yeah, you can follow that blueprint that the Jags did. Build with that money because you'll have it to spend. Go ahead and get your quarterback now, man. I'm not wasting time on Jimmy G. I'm not wasting time on Derek Carr. I'm not wasting time on Baker Mayfield or Mike White. And I don't think none of those quarterbacks, at least Derek Carr, Jimmy G, and maybe Baker, should waste time coming to Houston, especially a Derek Carr. You spent all that time in Vegas, Oakland. You probably want to go compete somewhere, and I get it. You don't want to come to Houston, and Houston shouldn't want you. Houston should want to get their guy for the future. And I don't think any of those quarterbacks are for the future guys. That's just me personally.
Agreed. John, why are Texans fans impatient now? Like, we finally got where we want to get, but why they so impatient right now?
Spoiled.
Because in 2006, they drafted Mario Williams instead of Vince Young. They almost missed out on Deshaun Watson. They're just not used to having good things. It's there. This is a quarterback's league. Go get it. And if you don't want me to use Trevor Lawrence, right? You can look at the Chargers, and the Chargers waited a couple seasons to do so, but last year they went all in because they had the money to do so. Traded for Khalil Mack. Even go back into the Jazz, they traded for Calvin Ridley. So that team on the offensive side of the ball, maybe even scarier when you get Calvin Ridley next year. I just think people are so used to how the Texans have been. Outside of Deshaun Watson, has been bridge quarterback after bridge quarterback. And they are used to that. They want to build, and they want to build, but you still can build with your quarterback there. So why not do it?
I agree with you, John. I feel like a rookie quarterback, and you still can build both sides, the trenches, everything everybody's saying, you still can build off that rookie contract. I agree. Matt, who you want?
I'm with John on that. I want a quarterback at second. Like you said, C.J. Stroud, Bryce Young, anybody that's not named Will Levis or Anthony Richardson at two. Like that's the people I want. But I wouldn't. Now this is where I'm going to disagree with John. I wouldn't mind a Derek Carr coming in and kind of showing the ropes like Patrick Mahomes did, like they tried to do for Justin Herbert, but Tyrod Taylor got his lungs punched out by the team doctor. Like I wouldn't mind because the game's a different speed than college, so I wouldn't mind taking a bet like Derek Carr. Now I don't want Jimmy G, I don't want Jacoby Brissett because they're good at what they're at, but they're not a bet like Derek Carr. Derek Carr is the master of the game, number 12th in fourth quarter comebacks. He has that clutch factor. You know, he can help this rookie quarterback. I think he can help the coaching, and especially if it's a first-time offensive coordinator, help him teach the rookie. But the only way I want Derek Carr is if everybody's like, hey, we want a fifth-round pick, and the Raiders ain't going to take that, so they're just going to cut him. That's the only way I'll take him.
I definitely wouldn't trade for him. You know, I knew that Patrick Mahomes and Alex Smith was going to come up. The big difference between that is before Patrick Mahomes was drafted, I think the Chiefs were one game out of the AFC Championship game, and Alex Smith was already on their roster, so he didn't have to learn anything different.
Right.
So,
but if you hear a lot of his press conference, his interviews and stuff, he gives a lot of praise to Alex Smith. He said if he did not take that 1 year, that he probably wouldn't be as good as he is. Which I doubt that. I mean, he's a hell of a quarterback. But I mean, just saying. I mean, you go back to the older days. I forget the name because I was like 3 years old, but they did it to Steve McNair. They waited 1 year before they started Steve McNair. So I mean, it's a smart process. I wouldn't mind it, but I'm with you, John. If they throw him out there and let him learn like Trevor Lawrence, so be it. I mean,
and I don't even think it's just throwing him out there. Now, this is where I know my boy V. But if we take that approach, right, and let's say they don't draft a quarterback altogether, right? What if they just say, well, we can build this team and everybody was critical of Pep Hamilton last year in their play calling and in offense. Would you be mad if they ran it back with Davis Mills one more year?
I'm a hit and miss. Like, not really, because was Davis Mills going to teach the rookie? That's why that's why I would like Carr, because Carr can help develop Davis and the rookie. I mean, he teaches him something Davis doesn't know yet. Because like you said, Pep Hamilton was trash. Tim Kelly was trash. So you got to give a guy a valuable teacher, and who better than a guy who was MVP caliber multiple years. I mean, he made receivers who they weren't. Like Amari Cooper was nothing since he left Oakland. He's been good, but he hasn't been what he was in Oakland, or I'm sorry, Las Vegas. Same thing with Waller. Waller wasn't nothing in Baltimore, and when it came to Derek Carr, that's when he became. I'm a Crabtree. Crenshaw missed a whole bunch of names. I'm missing a lot of people, but Derek Carr elevates the talent around him. So why not elevate the quarterback that's backing you up? So that's just. But either way, I don't mind. Whatever DeMeco goes with, that's who I'm going to go with. So.
Okay, I think it's more of the contract that's scaring people, Matt. I think it's more the contract. VT, come on, get your rant on, baby.
There you go.
So you guys heard me say this before, that even if we drafted a quarterback at 2, that I wanted to take a vet. I actually wanted to have a vet and draft a quarterback. And I know that sounds ridiculous, but let me tell you why. That's not just a Patrick Mahomes, Alex Smith scenario. It's the fact is that even if we draft a quarterback, who's going to mentor him, right? It's not going to be Davis Mills. It's not going to be Driscoll. It's not going to be Kyle Allen. So the reason why I am higher on Jimmy G, bringing him here, isn't necessarily because I think Jimmy G is the future for the Houston Texans, but he's learned from Bill Belichick. He learned from Kyle Shanahan. He worked with Bobby Slowick. And obviously he's worked with DeMeco. So he fits a piece of that puzzle, a temporary piece of that puzzle, that if he came to the Houston Texans and mentored whatever quarterback we had, whoever it was, and he obviously works with Slowick, and then he can now work with that and mentor that quarterback on the things he's learned by 2 of the best head coaches in history, right? Kyle Shanahan, Bill Belichick. You got to put them obviously on that list. So that's why I like Jimmy Garoppolo. Carr, I know that Crenshaw and Matt disagree with me on this, but I think Carr suffers from the Kirk Cousins disease. His numbers look great. He sometimes does a great job. If you look at his numbers, it should be, why is he MVP? The problem is that he panics and makes bad decisions at the worst times. He causes his team to lose. And that's the problem of what Carr has. Jimmy G, what the good thing about Jimmy G is, Jimmy G typically, I'm not saying all the time because he has cost games, but typically Jimmy G is a game manager. He's not going to win you games. He's not going to lose you games, but he'll keep you in if all the pieces are all right. And frankly, for a mentor, you really just want someone that can mentor a quarterback, that can bring him in the system. And the other, any other quarterback, I don't want Derek Carr for the reasons I just mentioned. I don't want Baker Mayfield because what is Baker Mayfield going to mentor? Nothing. So the reason to bring a bridge quarterback here, in my opinion, is because we've drafted a quarterback at number 2 and we need to teach him. None of the quarterbacks in the draft, I don't care if it's Bryce Young, CJ Stroud, Will Levis, Anthony Richardson, are going to be good out of the gate. Not even Bryce Young. So I would want someone to actually sit and mentor them. And without that, I think we could be looking at a relatively poor season if we don't have some sort of QB coach.
Be real quick. You're right. Jimmy G will be sitting with him and mentor him, because that's what he's going to do, is get hurt and sit down and mentor him, because that's all he does, is get hurt.
And the thing is, I'm perfectly fine with that. I don't want Jimmy G here to simply play the season, right? Like, I would be happy if Jimmy G played 3 or 4 games and then the rookie took over. I'm not getting Jimmy G to play for us the entire season.
And I get what you're saying too, V, about Derek Carr, but also you got to look at his. He had 16 in crucial time turnovers. I mean, that's really great for how long he's played. That's either in 5 minutes of quarterback play or within at one possession score change, and he also is top 12 in most comebacks. I mean, that's pretty clutch. Like I don't think you put him in there with Kirk Cousins quite yet. I mean, Kirk Cousins is god awful at being, clutch. Yeah, Derek Carr not so much. And the reason why I picked Derek Carr, because Jimmy G, like you said, Jimmy G is a good game manager. Derek Carr, he knows how to read the blitz. He's a great quarterback. He knows when to audible. He knows when to shift. Jimmy G, to me, he doesn't. He rolls with it. So I think Derek Carr is more of a master of the game, and that's why I would like Jimmy G or Carr over Jimmy G. Go ahead, John. I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, I definitely see where V is coming from. Simply because you do want somebody here that can kind of bring your quarterback along. But I would 100% agree with you if this was Lovie Smith or David Culley.
Right.
I'm half and half, 50-50, where I'm like, I can see where you go. I understand that, but then I also simply do trust DeMeco Ryans to put a staff together to develop these players. And so with that being said, I'm more so of go with what you got, draft what you need. And of course, they will address their quarterback position. I don't expect for no Kyle Allen or Jeff Driscoll to be back, but they'll bring in a third quarterback, maybe stash him on a practice squad, get him right through our preseason. You know how it goes. But overall, that's the only reason why. That's the biggest reason why I'll say where I'm like, I don't think we need a Derek Carr. I don't think we need a Baker or any of those guys, because I simply do trust DeMeco Ryans as a development coach more than anything, honestly. So, I do want to address the Will Levis and Anthony Richardson. Listen, I'm one of the guys that just simply don't believe in Anthony Richardson or Will Levis for the Texans. I think specifically Anthony Richardson, I think a good scenario for him will be for a team that made it to the playoffs but may need a quarterback for the future. Seattle, right, where you're talking about sitting and learning. I know they're going to bring back Geno, I think, on a team-friendly deal, or they can get Geno back for maybe 2 years, get him on that, get him back over in Seattle. But, man, I think Anthony Richardson and Pete Carroll and sitting behind Geno for some time and learning would be a perfect situation. Maybe like, in the perfect world, stashing them for Minnesota, something like that. But Anthony Richardson is a quarterback who I think lacks a lot of passing tools, which is what I like, right?
And has a lot of potential, right?
He has a lot of potential, but that potential isn't for the Texans, right? Because I think that potential is for when it's time for that potential. By the time he gets on that field to play football, that potential should immediately come out because he's waiting to learn how to play in the NFL. The Texans need a quarterback right now. I think if you put Anthony Richardson in the Texans situation and expect for him to play year one, it's going to be a huge failure. Same with Will Levis.
Right. So basically, if you do go to the Anthony Richardson route, you're going to have to get a gap quarterback. You're going to have to get Derek Carr. You're going to have to get Jacoby Brissett. So that's why I don't want him at 2. I don't think they're going to go after him at 12, because I mean, you have – this draft is so great at positional players. I don't think you gamble at getting a quarterback at 12. You get it at 2, you get it over with, and you move on. That's my opinion. I think that's what you need to do, and just build like you've been saying, just build your roster through the draft.
Can I just say something about Anthony Richardson? Because I know I'm probably the only one that likes him at all, but Anthony Richardson, to me, is that athletic freak, and we know that DeMeco likes mobile quarterbacks. He's a 6'4", 240-pound quarterback that could potentially run a 4.4. He already runs a sub 4.5. So he's saying that he can run a sub 4.4. I think it was 4.58. I believe that he ran in high school. He could throw 70 yards. Yes, he's completely underdeveloped as a passer. 100% agree. But he only started having a quarterback coach 1 year ago. It's not like
his wide receiver group was terrible this past season.
Yes, and horrible, right? So the thing is, we're basing a lot of things on what he is already, and the thing, his ceiling is actually very, very high. In fact, I believe he has the highest ceiling of all top 4 quarterbacks that we're talking about. So because of his athleticism, right? The scouts have said that he's a mix between a wide receiver and a linebacker because of his speed and his size. He hurdles like a Josh Allen, and he threw, and he throws with a cannon. I actually said my hot take for him was that if he goes into the right place, he can be a better Cam Newton eventually. Not year one, not year two, eventually. So I think there is a place for him. I actually think that he could end up at the Panthers, and in year three could really ball out. And I know that he's so underdeveloped now, which is why I think a lot of Texans fans don't want him. But to say that he's so raw that he's not going to eventually be something, I think is wrong. He can actually be something. And just on the Will Levis front, Will Levis also did not have the best receivers, had probably one of the worst O-lines in the country.
All of his guys left.
All of his guys left. He broke his finger, he hurt his shoulder, and he hurt his toe, and still played. And so
and drinks mayo in his coffee, like.
I think that's probably helping him, but nonetheless, Wanda Robinson hasn't done much, but Will Levis got him drafted essentially. If you look at a lot of the throws that he made, he hits his receivers' in his hands. His receivers just don't catch the ball. And the other thing is he's a bully on the field. So when the play breaks down, he will just truck you over, and go through 3 or 4 dudes to get another 5, 6, 7 yards. That game in 2021 against LSU, when you saw him doing that over and over again, it's just like insanity. So I don't think that any of the 4 top quarterbacks are completely off the table. I think Nick and DeMeco are talking about all 4. I'm sure they have preferences already, but I think at the combine and pro days, I think a lot of the expectations are going to change. Shout out to Noah, who's probably watching, who brought this up. Last year, Evan Neal was a consensus pick by every expert, right? We were going to have Evan Neal. 2 weeks before the draft, we got Derek Stingley. So the combine and pro days are going to change, and how we view these quarterbacks now, just wait another month until we see how everyone is going to view these quarterbacks.
I do want to add that a lot of these scouts and media scouts, to be completely honest with you, sometimes I don't know if they're watching tape or they're just watching numbers, or if they're watching what they think that they want to see out of these players. I say that because, to V's point, I remember the hype around Evan Neal last year, and if you guys also remember, there was some hype around Ike Ekwonu going to the Texans as well. And I just thought that was ridiculous. I just thought because you already had Larry Tunsil and Titus Howard, that was ridiculous. And it was just, they're going to get them. And when you scouted the draft last year and you realized that the Houston Texans picked number 3 overall, I knew that my man up in New York, not Evan Neal, but not for the Giants, came on late. Thibodeau, yeah. I knew that he wasn't the Texan guy. There was only 2 guys that I said Houston was going to draft. And I really wish it was Sauce. Thank God it wasn't Sauce, because he's in a perfect situation. But you just knew if you were around his team that they were going to go cornerback. And that's what they did. The entire offseason, it was, Evan Neal and Ike Ekwonu. I never bought into that. And I say that to say this. I've seen a lot of mock drafts out there. I love when people do mock drafts. A lot of times they get ridiculous. I've seen like a mock draft that had 30 trades, and the Texans are picking like 4 times in the first round. I love it. But make sure you do your own research on some of these players, man, because don't just believe what the TV is telling you. The TV is wrong a lot. Mel Kiper and Todd McShay is wrong a lot. So, and there's some talented players out there. Over the course of the next couple of weeks, man, I'm gonna take some time and do as much scouting that I can behind the scenes. But there's some talented players out there. Just don't listen to the tube.
Like I said earlier, this draft is probably one of the best positional player drafts that we've seen in a very long, probably since 2011. So I'm very excited. I think we're going to get a lot of key players that we need. So I'm excited.
Absolutely. Just stop mocking Bijan to the Texans, please. Please. I mean, look, I want him to go somewhere where he can be the guy. And it ain't gonna be in Houston, man. And
We want Deuce Vaughn in Houston. Bring us
Deuce
some Deuce.
Vaughn and maybe if you can catch him. I don't know if you're gonna slip to the third, but
I think
Deuce
he will.
Vaughn,
I think he slipped to the fourth. To tell you the truth.
you think so? I can see
so.
a perfect scenario for the Houston's offseason at running back. You already got DP, right? You don't got to worry about that. Maybe Deuce Vaughn and Jeff Wilson, plays for the Dolphins. And I say Jeff Wilson because we talk about a vet at the quarterback position. Man, how many times do you say to yourself, can we get a valuable, productive vet and get Rex Burkhead the hell up out of here last year? So Jeff Wilson, a guy that has that rapport with, if it's Bobby Slowick or even with DeMeco, played in San Fran, he can come in, still can run the ball effectively. I think he averaged 4.8 or something like that last year, maybe a little bit lower. A career hovering around 5 point, whatever yards per carry. He can run that ball good. And with Deuce Vaughn, he's one of those low bodies that can. I'm not going to say Darren Sproles. Man! I didn't want to say it. I didn't want to say it.
It's hard. I mean, the gameplay, the build. I mean, all of it is Darren Sproles. I mean,
I didn't want to say it.
He runs like Darren Sproles. He catches like Darren Sproles. Hell, he's built like Darren Sproles. I mean,
okay, we could just say Danny. What was your boy name? Danny Woodhead.
Danny Woodhead.
What about Danny Woodhead? Yeah.
Nah, he's way better.
Way better than that.
Way better. I love Mr. Danny Woodhead, but yeah.
All right. Well, John McClain said on this show that over the months, the quarterback's going to change, going to flip flop. CJ Bryce. So we got to be patient. Mr. John, I know you got to get up out of here. Usually around this time, we like to ask the host a question or two. You okay with that?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay. Matt, ask your question.
Yeah, man. We love your dedication on the Texans, Locked On Texans. You're probably the top two, probably number one, if we're gonna be honest. Just kind of tell us what's the dedication that it takes to be that prestige.
Man, I wouldn't even say prestige, man. So I don't say this because Crenshaw actually met me and came to my home. Prestige, I think, takes you away from real people. And one thing about me is I believe in fellowship and connecting with people, right? So we can just say the best. I'm not gonna say prestige, but the dedication for us, man, for me and my brother Cody, is we went to school for this, right? Like me and Cody have been knowing each other. This is 2023, about 12 years now.
Oh wow.
Really started knowing each other. Used to argue, when Braun was in in Miami, Kobe was still in the league. So in our communication building, we would argue right before class for like 15 to 20 minutes. Came home, interned at ESPN 97.5, did our own podcast, had the opportunity to get locked on. And so what people I know they don't see is 3 years ago how we was grinding to get where we are now. That first season, there was so many times we would just ask each other, "Are you sure you want to do this? You still want to keep going? You still want to keep going?" But both of us I know I can honestly say it, and I know him, so he can honestly say it. And I don't do anything in terms of sports, whatever the case is, without my brother. We don't do this for money. We do this because we've sacrificed a whole hell of a lot of time, a hell of a lot of just every sacrificed to get to where we are. And the sacrifice, the love and respect that we have for one another, because Cody does it all, right? I do want to take some time to shout out my brother. Cody covers the Rockets. Cody covers the Texans. If you guys don't know about the SaberCat, the rugby team in Houston, Cody helped get that team off the ground in many different ways. So when I tell you he's up grinding from 5 a.m, sometimes if the Rockets go to overtime, damn, midnight. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I see him grind, and I'm like, you're not gonna outgrind me. You know what I mean? Not in the way like I'm hating, but we gotta keep it going, and that's my motivation, right? Just continuously working, trying to leave a legacy, and connecting with people, man. Like I said, I believe in brotherhood, fellowship, and I love connecting with people. I may disagree with you. Perfect example. Like I got on here, and me and V good money, but me and V have disagreed on Twitter. I'm never gonna take it where it's just crazy because that's what this is about, right? You get an opportunity to meet people, let people speak their mind, and hopefully people can be adults about it and disagree or whatever. So it's all about meeting people. It's all about making connections. And it's all about the grind each and every day.
Love it.
Loving what you do.
Love it.
Yeah, that's a hell of an answer.
Yeah.
VT asked your question.
Yeah, I'd like to know, like, obviously you just explained eloquently about why you're doing what you're doing, but have there been a specific moment in your life where you said, I know you went to school for this and stuff, but was there a moment that just said, this is exactly what I want to do and why? Like, I understand, like, yes, you went to school and stuff for this, but there has to be some sort of moment where you decided, I'm going to dedicate a large part of my life to doing this. And what was that moment?
Man, I was a kid, man. So Via, I know you're not from Houston. My man, are you from Houston?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so I know. Do y'all remember they used to have like the Sunday fun days in the park downtown in Houston, downtown Houston? This is when the city was just beautiful. So it was a news station there, and I have the recording somewhere at my grandmother's house. But I just got on there like I was on the news, and I'm John Hickman from downtown Houston. I couldn't say Houston at the time. So I always knew that I was going to be in front of a camera or behind a microphone. I've always knew I was going to be something. I've always been me, like been able to talk and everything. Tried out for Lamar University football team my freshman year, didn't make it. Tried to go through their process, and the more I went through their process, the more I was like, I don't really feel like playing. And shout out to Ahmad Rashad. Shout out to Man Hatter. Without those two men, watching those two black men, when I was a kid, Ahmad Rashad on Saturdays when the cartoons would go off, and he's going around doing these amazing interviews, but he's not doing it with a suit on, and he's not necessarily at that time in America just the proper way. He's doing it with the athletes that look like him, and they're able to be who we are.
Right.
That was a huge impression on me. And then 97.9. Mad Hatter in the morning show. Like I definitely wouldn't be who I am without them. Meeting Mad Hatter, meeting J Mag, meeting Tay when she was on 97.9, and that whole crew going up to 97.9 the box and just seeing how everything works and just being so, like starstruck. Like, this is crazy. You can make an impact on people and they never even see you. I got a chance to see some of those people at the time where I was just like, these are heroes. So between those two, man, and my mom just always putting me in front of a crowd. I've been in every play, church play, school play, sung songs, rapped everything, being comfortable behind a mic, and she teaching me how to, be in front of a crowd. I've always knew that. I've always knew that I was going to be in front of a microphone, and when I realized that sports was the way that I can connect with people, I just took it and ran with it.
Okay.
Yeah. That's deep. That's deep, man. See, this is the side of you that fans don't get to hear, and I'm glad you're able to share that on the show. And the reason why we like to do this segment on the show. A lot of people don't get to ask these questions. The question for me though, John, do you ever get tired?
I'm tired right now. So last year I got married, I had a wedding. Working at a crazy job, better than what I am right now. I'm better now than I was. I got tired so much, man, and I think I may get more tired now because I'm in my field full time. So from whatever time I wake up till maybe however late we record, I'm doing some type of communication. Talking, writing, whatever the case is. So to answer your question, I get tired a lot. This is I think going on our 4th season with the Locked On Texans. I get tired a lot, man. I like no joke. I just tired. But my passion outweighs it. If I need to take a day, I will take a day, and then I'll make it up. So if I take a Wednesday off, I just record on Friday or Saturday, and we'll get another show out if we can. So, But I get tired all the time, man. What's that old saying? What's worth having is worth working for. So by the time I leave Locked On Texans, man, wherever I go next, I want it to be bigger and better. And me getting tired, and if I don't perform like I consistently, can hinder me wherever I go next. So I get tired a lot. I'm not joking. I'm tired right now, but I really do love what I do, man. All right, no joke. Crenshaw, do you get tired, man? You doing sports podcast, cheesecake? Y'all know about Crenshaw's cheesecake.
Fire.
Boy, he would open up like, I got a chef on the show. I got a cheesecake plug on the show. Y'all don't know that, man.
Cheesecake. I still got the video of John's bite reaction. I'm about to send it to you guys. It's incredible.
I think
it's incredible.
I think I already saw it, but yeah.
I gotta send it to VT. Yeah, I gotta send it to VT. But okay. On that note, we're gonna end the show on that note. So before I end the show, I want to shout out Nicole Lynn. To be the first Black African American to represent a quarterback at the Super Bowl. I want to shout her out. You know, Black History Month. I want to shout out Patrick Mahomes and Jalen Hurts as well. May the best man win. Hopefully one day we all can see our team there so we can cry real tears.
Well, I have.
But before we go, John, can you tell us, the folks, the viewers, where they can find you at and your great work?
Absolutely. Find me on Twitter at John_Hickman12. I'm on Twitter talking sports. I'm on Twitter talking movies. I'm on Twitter talking whatever I feel like talking about at that time. And then I'll squeeze in some Texans and, sports stuff like that. I also follow the Locked On YouTube page. Give us a subscribe over on YouTube. Locked On Texans. Like, comment, subscribe, the whole nine, man. I do want to say something. It is Black History Month, and I really would love if no matter who's watching it, but my Black and brown folks, man, to really celebrate this month. However we may feel about what's going on in life right now, just like how I mentioned I wouldn't do what I do without Matt Hatter and Amar Rashad, and there is somebody that paved the way for us to get here. Shout out to Lonnie Johnson, not the former Texan cornerback safety who I call tweet through it, but one of the most influential toy makers of all time, Lonnie Johnson. If y'all don't know, he was the man with the super soaker. My grandmother taught me that young. And so shout out to him, shout out to his family, but happy Black History Month. Celebrate it in every way that you can. And then we're going to celebrate it some more on Sunday in the Super Bowl, baby. Yes. Shout out to Jalen Hurts.
Yes, sir. One more thing on the Black History Month. If you guys ain't tried oxtails, try some oxtails. All right. Matt, give us your handle, man.
Oh, man. How are you going to do me like that? That's hard to follow, bro. Oh, yeah. Find me A1 Day 1 Texas everywhere. Make sure you, like John said, make sure you like, subscribe, comment on his YouTube, but also on ours, Texans Fan Battle, and also Fan Battle Sports. So great stuff. Check us out. We appreciate the love.
All right, Mr. VT, tell everybody about your amazing work.
You can find me at Brown Chubby Bear on Twitter. You can find my articles at TexansFanBattle.com. And please subscribe to our YouTube channel at Texans Fan Battle.
All right. And me, I'm your host for the month, Phil Ford Crenshaw. Once again, follow the channel, follow Locked On Texans, and y'all have a great night, and we out.
Go Texans.